All right. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining. Um, I'm Gabby, by the way. I'll just make a quick introduction so we get the discussion started. So I'm Gabby. I'm a tech recruiter at MongoDB, as you can see. And I'm also a professional development lead for the Latina ERG at MongoDB. So today we are partnering. Oh my God. Yeah, clearly English is my second language. I have a strong accent. I'm from Brazil. But anyways, this event's a partnership between Latinas in Tech and MongoDB to create an opportunity for career growth. This event is actually part of a series of events for Latinas that we created at MongoDB. The program is called Programa Cultivar, and it's a series of events for professional development for Latinas in the company. As part of the Latina Heritage Month, we created this partnership to share knowledge and experiences from great Latinas that have grown their careers inside tech. So we have 3 Latinas from 3 different companies, and also our Latinas in Tech lead in Toronto to moderate the discussion. Just a quick intro about Latinas in Tech in case somebody here doesn't know about us. And when I say us, it's because I am a Latinas in Tech lead in Ottawa alongside Alejandra, who is taking care of the technology for this event. So Latinas in Tech started in 2014 in Silicon Valley as an informal gathering between 2 friends and grew since then. The co-founders dreamed of a group where Latinas could connect with each other, learn from each other, and support each other. Now we have 23 chapters globally, and the community has over 27,000 members. So I'm not going to take any longer. I just want to say that these events are not only to share knowledge and experiences, of course, but it's also about networking. The strongest pillar that we have is our community, and the idea of not only Latinas in Tech, but also ERGs such as Latina at Mongo is to create that strong community. So feel free to share, social media profiles, LinkedIn profiles that you feel comfortable. People can connect to each other, so you can take some connections out of this event. And also, we will have a moment to have the discussion between the group, but we'll make sure to save time in the end for questions. So if you have questions during the discussion, feel free to write them down in the chat so people can react to your question. And then at the end, we know which questions have more people interested in. So we can choose which questions. Cool? Are we ready? Okay. Stephanie, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, thanks, Gabby. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Gomez. As Gabby said, I'm one of the Latinas in Tech leaders based in Toronto, Canada. So excited to be part of this discussion, and so great to see that we have people from all over Canada and the US. So amazing representation. I'm truly honored to be part of this discussion, mostly because cultivating career growth is something that's close and dear to my heart. Only 1% of Latinas make it into executive positions. And that is one reality that we need to change in this lifetime. And I truly believe that we can achieve that change by doing events like these ones where we can share each other's stories, talk about the obstacles and how we overcame them, because knowledge is power, and if we can learn from each other, then we can break that cycle and really see more Latinas become jefas, which is ultimately what we all want. So without further ado, just absolutely honored to share the Zoom stage with 3 amazing powerhouses. So I would love for each of you to introduce yourselves and give a sneak peek of what you're going to be talking about today. So I'll just go around the Zoom room, what I see here. So Larissa, please give us a little bit of an intro around who you are and what you do.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here. My name is Larissa. I'm originally from Brazil. I'm from Fortaleza, city in the north of Brazil. And today I'm a regional director in sales for Latin America in MongoDB. I was born and raised in Brazil my whole career. After completing my degree in marketing, actually, I decided to pivot to an international career in sales. So in the past 10 years, I've been working in different sales roles from prospecting to now managing the whole region in Latam. And I had the opportunity to live in different countries. I've lived in Canada, in Belgium, in Argentina, worked in companies like Microsoft, LinkedIn, Zendesk. So I've been through different situations here. So I'm very excited to share a little bit about my career, things that I learned, things that I struggle. So feel free to ask any questions.
That's great. There's going to be so much knowledge sharing there. I'm excited for it. Karen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Pinzas Morrongielo. I am originally from Lima, Peru. Right now, I'm living in Canada, in Ottawa, and I am a senior mobile developer for FullScript. This is a company in Ottawa. My career has been all over the place in Peru, Argentina, and now here. And before being a developer, I was a lawyer. I finished law school, did everything there until I switched careers. So that is one of the things that I'm going to speak about. Thank you. Happy to be here.
That's excellent. Pivoting careers is something that's monumental. So there's going to be some great learnings there as well. Pegmas, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So excited to be here. My name is Douglas Barrios Sanchez. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm based in Ottawa. I work for Pinterest currently, where I'm a senior diversity and inclusion specialist. But I feel similar to Karen. One of the reasons I'm so excited to be here is because I've had a pretty wild career journey and a lot of pivots. And it's so special to be on the line with multiple people who've given me great advice during those pivots. So shout out to Gabby, shout out to Karen as well. But it's so wonderful to be here. So I've worked as a recruiter, a volunteer manager. I've worked with penguins at an aquarium. I worked in customer service, learning and development, talent management, and now diversity and inclusion. And we'll see what's next. But I'm really excited to share more about like how I made those pivots and what a non-traditional career journey can look like. And always happy to answer any questions about that. And then I manage the employee resource group program at Pinterest. So shout out to any ERG leaders who are here in the chat. Love you, admire you. You are doing the work. I founded the Shopify Latinx ERG, which is what brought so many of us together here. And so it's just such a pleasure to be able to give back to our Canadian Latina community. But such a wonderful surprise to have people joining from the US and Mexico and Brazil. So thank you all for being here.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. A lot of pivots. I'm hearing that's probably going to be the theme for today. So, all right, let's get started. There's, I'm sure, a lot of questions that we want to get through, but I think before we get into everything, we should start at the beginning, which is, pivoting careers, entering the tech world. So, Karen, I would love to know from your story, how do you identify when it's the right time to make a career change or when it's time to pivot?
Okay. I think it's a very personal decision. I'm not saying that this is the case for everyone, but I think when you see a lack of passion of what you are doing or certain misalignments related to the values of the practice of what you do, or that you find this difference between what you were expecting on the job and when you were studying, I think that would be some things to notice if there is a good time to do a pivot in your career. For me, in my personal case, it was a burnout. I felt really, really bad, a big lack of passion of the practice of the law. I love the law. I love the theory of the law. I still enjoy that part of the law, but the practice was something that I realized it was not for me. And at that time, I was like, okay, let's look what other things I'm good at. What are the things that I like? and at the end, it went into coding. But I think if you are finding these things that you are kind of are not working for you, I think that is a good time to check if maybe you need to explore other paths in your life.
I so agree with that. And I think one thing I heard there that it is important when you're reevaluating is thinking about the strengths that you have. What are you really good at? What do you find interest in? Because that can help you determine what is the right next step for you based on where your energy is well spent, right?
Yes, especially because like it's something that you are going to do most part of your life. So it is something that also you are enjoying is really, really important. If not,
Yeah.
it really feels something that is too hard to do.
Exactly. I think you kind of answered this, but I would love to know what advice would you give to someone that is probably living it right now? They're thinking about pivoting their career, making that change. What would you recommend they do?
The first thing that I would recommend is like, for example, I'm going to speak about, for example, development, which is the thing that I am developer. For example, if you are working in a company, look for opportunities in the same company to explore what you are thinking to pivot. I see sometimes when people that are trying to get into development, for example, they start to check the GitHub of the company if they have access, and they start to see small issues that maybe people are not paying attention, so they can practice a little bit with that, pair with other developers. We are not that bad. We really are open to help people if they are interested to explore a little bit of tech. So look for those opportunities in your same company is really important. Not even like the formal ones, which is internships and such, but there is other small things that could appear in your company, like open source opportunities inside, or those small issues that no one is paying attention. That is one of the suggestions that I did to a former coworker in the past, and that landed into an internship in the company. So that is one thing, because you are already showing the interest and already showing what you know and putting in practice what you know, because you already know a lot about the company that you just need to apply this knowledge in another part. That would be one thing. The other thing is like you need to be perseverant if you are doing this, especially because one of the things that I struggled when I started is that my plan A was being a lawyer, and I was doing now the plan B. When things get difficult in plan B, you start to see plan A as the option, because you already have everything for plan A, but you need to remember plan A doesn't make you happy. Plan A doesn't make you feel complete. So you need to be perseverant about what you like about plan B. Do the work, do the practice. Especially in my case as a developer, there is a lot new things that happen every time. There is new libraries, new code, new parts of your role. For example, I work my whole life as an iOS developer, and in full script, I'm doing React Native, something that is pretty new for me. So I'm doing a lot of more practice and practice and practice in order to be at the level that the rest of my coworkers are. So that is something that you need to take into consideration when you are pivoting. The practice is going to be constant in the beginning, and the frustration is going to be there. But remember that plan B is the thing that you like and the one that makes you happy.
Ooh, I'd love to add to that too,
Of
actually.
course, please.
Yeah.
Oh,
Plan B.
kind of like +1 to literally everything you said. I think the other things I would add was, first of all, would be like meet people who have the careers that you think you're interested in. Because sometimes you think something looks great on paper and then you meet with someone, and I had a moment where I was like, I want to work in marketing, and then I met with people in marketing and I was like, no, that is not for me. But I think it can, just having kind of like informational interviews and like meeting people, like reach out to people within your own companies who have jobs that sound interesting to you or like fit with those things, can help you get a more realistic perspective of like what that looks like, what the day-to-day is like. and also help you build some contacts if you want to do any of those things. And then when it comes to those informal opportunities, I don't know if all companies have this, but a lot of tech companies have like hack days or make-a-thon, stuff like that, where you get to work on projects that you wouldn't typically work on. So volunteering for that, even if it's like a bit of a stretch, is a great way to also meet people and get involved. But I think you're so right in that it really comes down to that feeling of like, I think you know when you need to grow. Like whether it's that you are crying at work every day, been there when I was working in recruiting, or you're feeling really burnt out or really tired, or just like this isn't it. So I think like following that feeling is so important.
I so agree. And Peglis, you mentioned something that's truly important, especially when you're trying to break into a completely different role or even industry. And it's that networking, right? So being able to talk to people, which I think dovetails really nicely into the other part of the conversation, which is seeking mentorship. That's also an important part of your career journey. So whether you're pivoting or you're thinking about making moves into the role and moving into more senior positions, mentorship and sponsorship is key. So I would love to ask Larissa, who has been navigating so many different levels in her careers, what strategies have you found most effective, especially when building those relationships with mentors and sponsors?
Yeah, no, I love this question because when I look back in my career, a lot of the things that have worked well for me was because I was always seeking opportunities. But those opportunities came through people. So you have to have a good networking, you have to know people, you have to get them into your story. So I think in terms of strategy, I could share a lot of things like go to events or, like be active, be on the, like different groups, be involved and create your brand. But something that personally worked with me was I'm not very like a one-to-many person, but I'm more like in building a strong relationship with like different people. And this were most of my opportunities in my career, not only to step up, but actually to improve my skills came through. So I think some advice that I can give is more related to your mindset and to your attitude on that. And I would say like first start with your why. Like people normally get engaged when they understand your why. Like own your story, know where you want to go, and start positioning yourself of like, okay, like that story of I have a dream and people follow your dream. So I always try to make clear for everyone that I know, like, what is my story, where I came from, and what is my ultimate dream. People, you're gonna be impressed of people, how many people would like to be part of your story. So I would say like my first advice is just to like own your own story and your why. And second is like be genuinely curious about the other person why. Like to really don't make networking just because you're gonna need something, but really want to understand like what this person dream, what are their struggles, what are the things that they're seeing in the industry, because it's gonna not only help you to build your own opinion, but they're gonna see you as someone who wants to grow, and they're gonna be as someone who wants to seek advice to, like you're not doing this just because you want something in return. And I would say like my other advice would be, once you know who you are, where you want to go, and the other person motivation, offer something before you ask in return. So be proactive. If you have an advice, if you have something that is working well for you, even if you're in the beginning of your career, like I used to share something that I was struggling or doing right with people who were like way up from on me, just to, create this conversation. And lastly, I would say like, don't worry about your image. Like this was for me very important. Honestly, like coming from, I come from a small city in Brazil. My first job was in Europe, in the technology company. It was like, okay, I'm Latina, like I'm not that good. But actually, it was when I started to share my vulnerability and say like, yeah, I know where I come from and that's why I'm here. And that's why I want to become better. You start to be vulnerable, actually use this as your superpower, because people would like to help you. And, like when you're on your struggles is when you can get most out of people. So I think it's more of a mindset and attitude, but these were some like tips that helped me during my journey. And just to finish, like just have fun. Like in the end, is relationship. Some of my best friends are coming from the tech industry just because they were with me in the good moments, the bad moments. So just like have fun and treat like networking as your normal relationship. And yeah, have fun. Like in the tech industry, there's so many good people for you to meet. So that's what a kind of piece of advice is.
I love everything you said, and there's a couple things that I took away from it. One is being authentic, right? Like you make good relationships with people when you're authentic, and so showing up as yourself, who you are. The other thing I think I heard there is being curious, right? Like if you ask questions, if you have that internal curiosity, it leads to more conversation, but it also builds that genuine relationship because you are truly interested in what the other person has to say. I read this book when I was earlier in my career, which you just reminded me about. It's called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I don't know if you have all read that book, but that book changed my life. As a marketer, it gave me a whole new perspective on marketing strategy. But I think as a human, on a human level, it really is like, what is your why? What drives you in life? And being able to share that story with others allows for that connection as well. So I think that's super important. Thank you so much for sharing that. Another thing I wanted to ask you is, we hear so much about mentors, sponsors, coaches. What is the difference, and when should you seek out who when you're going through different stages in your career?
Yeah, of course. So for me, mentor is someone who is kind of a guide for your development. It can offer you advice. They will help you navigate to your challenges. They will show you like the dynamics of the industry, give you feedback. They're gonna be more concerned, or concern is not the best word, but like more, like helping you to your long-term development, either by, making a decision, where should I go next? Or how can I improve this? Or if I have a particular challenge. So they're more like a guide for you. And I see like sponsors or even champions as someone who can really advocate on your behalf. Like the people who will talk about you when you're not there, they're gonna open your doors, or they're gonna have a sort of a power or influence to, pick the fights for you if you don't have it. So I think there are different ways that you can work with both of them. Of course, like sometimes your sponsor can be your mentor. There's like, it's not a real like persona, but I would say like it's very important like to understand what you want to, what is your moment right now, to have a sponsor who will guide you, who will, like give you a piece of advice, or be responsible for your development or growth. You're going to be more, build more of a relationship in terms of like this transparency, this vulnerability, sharing goals, and etc. While I sponsor, normally it's a bit of a buy-in, because this is a person who will help you, internally in your career, or put their name for you. So with a sponsor, the relationship, I believe, is more of kind of you show your skills, and they will help you to get where you want. So it's a bit more transactional. And I would say like a third person that we did not mention is like the champions. You'll be surprised of how many times, your career can, like grow fast if you have different people rooting for you. Because sometimes I sponsor in a situation, like maybe someone who can give you like the opportunity in your company for a promotion or something. Maybe they're far from your work. And if you have like a network of champions who will be more close to you, who can really tell you, but this champion is also champion of your sponsor, you can open more doors, and you can be like have other options to grow your career. So I think this is kind of the two ways. It's always good to have both, because then you care about your development, but you also have someone to open the doors for you.
Yeah, I so agree. And mentors could be whether they are within your company, outside your company, also being able to have sometimes an external perspective on what's going on, right? So having someone who's not that close to the situation can give you that different lens of what's happening. I love what you said about champions, and I think we overlook that quite a bit. And so being more strategic in terms of who do you get to work with really closely that can advocate for you, that sees the work that you're doing. I also find one of the things as women and as Latinas, sometimes self-promotion is hard, right? Being able to advocate for the work that we're doing. And so finding those champions is so important because sometimes if you are not able to speak about your successes, one, let's work on it together. Let's find ways to elevate your voice. But I think two, find those champions that can help you build that confidence to speak up, and they can also chime in to the work that you're doing to support you. So I think that's also important.
And also many times, even if you want to advocate for yourself, maybe you're not there, you're not in the room, or you don't have the opportunity when the conversation. So that's why I believe it's important for you to build like your community of champions.
Yeah, I agree. I just saw a couple of questions in the chat that I think are relevant to this conversation. So we had Leslie asking, how can you maintain your network relationships in the case the person has a senior position and you're just starting in the workforce? What advice would you have?
I think I can take this like I remember my first experience, different country, different company, like didn't have anyone. And I would go back to the first thing that I said about the why. Like I would when I started my career, and also I was new in tech, I was very kind of bold and shameless and just went to people like, hey, I'm new here, 10 minutes coffee, and just ask questions like, what do you do, how, and share, like be very curious about people. And I remember in my first experience, I did this with so many people that every day I had like a personal goal. I will not have lunch alone. I will go to the office and have lunch with someone different every time. And in the end, like I believe once I needed, like I had such a strong community in that country for to help me on my next step. I was even talking with people like from technical support or marketing that nothing related to my role. That will help. So I think for that question, like if you're just starting, I would recommend to just don't be ashamed, just go there and ask like, hey, I'm new here. What piece of advice did you give me? But also like what worked for you? How is your journey? Like, is there, I know I'm new, but I come with some background. Is there anything I can help for you?
Agreed. Does anybody else want to also add to that? Just putting it out there.
Shared as well. I think another thing that can be really helpful if you're, like you're in a junior position and you're looking to have a mentor who's really senior, is coming with a clear ask. Because I think sometimes people don't maybe have like a clear idea of what they want from this mentorship situation. And the idea is like over time you develop a friendship or relationship that you're keeping up. But at first, it's great to come in with like a clear ask. So whether that's like you want their advice on applying for a specific role, or you would like someone to review your resume, or like something like that that's like very tangible and specific. And I would recommend having that each time you go to them. So whether it's like checking in on that item or another specific ask for them, especially like senior leaders, their time is so hard to get sometimes, so you really want to make sure that you're like showing that you're using it in the most impactful way possible.
I love that. That's true. I do find sometimes if you're not clear on what you're asking for, then you're not maximizing that opportunity with the person that you're chatting with, right? So don't lose sight of what is your ultimate goal? What do you want to get out of the conversation? And what questions can you ask that are going to help you get there? I think that's for sure. That's some great advice. Tara had a question here asking for Gabby. How do you self-promote with feeling like you're bragging? I can so relate to that. It took me so long to learn how to promote myself. But I heard this last night. We had a Latinas in Tech event here in Toronto, and this really stuck with me, which is it is not bragging if your achievements are based on facts. And that is 100% true. You're not bragging. You're listing your own achievements, what you've been able to accomplish. So my recommendation, and this is I started to do this halfway throughout my career, is every time I would get an email from someone that would say, "Hey, Stephanie, great job in this," I had a folder in my Outlook and I would drop all of those emails there. So whenever my performance review came up, I would go back to that folder and I would take out those highlights of what people said and I would mention that in my performance review. Because again, it didn't come from you. It came from the other people that were recognizing the value and the impact that you had. So do make sure, like, do remember that it's not bragging. It's you're talking about the facts of the impact that you had on the organization or on the project that you were working on. How do you find mentors when you are trying to switch careers? Who would like to answer that?
I can.
Go for it.
Um, I think one of the things that you can do is based on the networking, try to reach out to people that are doing the things that you are doing. And again, clear ask about what do you like to have, what is the input that they can provide you. I think that is really important. In my career, for example, I find a lot of developers, young developers, like I want to switch to mobile developer. Can you should suggest me certain things? And I can have those suggestions, but it would be really general. Sometimes they come to me like, I have this small project that I'm working on. Can you provide me some feedback related to this part? And I think and sometimes they just put the GitHub link and I can see the code really quickly. I can see and I can provide that. I think like when you make the questions in a really organized way and you communicate good in that way, it is easy. I think people are really open to help other people in order to switch careers. The clear ask is really important. Especially, I don't, how I can say this. I'm Peruvian. I English as I learned English as a second language, and when I learned, they always told me that I need to say hi, how are you? Then expect a reply. Then ask again, oh, thank you. Oh, can I ask you a question? Then I receive so there is a lot of like this thing that we do, or for example, I do as English as a second language. So the clear ask is so important because the other person is not going to find it rude when you don't do these things that we already learned that you need to do. So I think that clear ask is again pretty important.
I think it's
So
so
true.
funny you mentioned that because that coming up in the English second language training, because I have had this experience when I was like leading the employee resource group, and a lot of people who are members would reach out to me and be like, "Hi," like nothing else. And I'd be like, "Hello," and they'd be like, "How are you?" And like truly wait for me to tell them like, "How was my weekend? How has my life been?" And then like 45 minutes later, they're finally like, "Oh, this is what I would like your help with." I'm like, don't hesitate. I think especially US and Canada, it's like, and especially like East Coasters, it's a very direct culture. So you can very much be kind of like, hello, this is what I would like. And that is totally acceptable. As long as you still said hi, like you had like some sort of pleasantry in there. And then the other thing I also want to mention, like if you are trying to pivot into a new career and you're looking for mentors within that group, make the most of the communities that you have access to. So like all of you who showed up here today to Latinas in Tech, like great move, well done. If you have employee resource groups at your company, if there's any other kind of like professional networks within your city, these are great ways to connect with other people who might have like similar interests. You might have some common ground, maybe a shared identity, and they can also help you in that pivot.
Yeah, very true. Very true. There's a lot of great community groups out there, and all of them are led by fantastic professionals that I'm sure would love to be mentors. So do reach out to them for sure. I think we've been able to talk about all the different phases of the career, but last and not least, we should talk about managing career growth. So what are some of the key steps to growing, especially within a large corporation where it can be very competitive? Peglis, I think you had some experience there where you can share with us some insights.
Yeah, it's so funny because I feel like Larissa outlined my strategy to a T, but I think it's like it worked, it worked for me, it worked for you. So that's amazing. But I think definitely making the most of the connections that you have internally. I also, very similar to Larissa, I was like, when I was in a physical office, I was like, I'm going to try and have lunch with different people each day, try to go to any kind of like extracurricular things at work, like whether it's like the holiday gathering or cookie decorating or whatever, like I will be there and I'll try to meet people. And then when I was working remotely, it was a little more challenging but still doable. I would look through the org chart of the company, which is usually on Workday if you have that, or maybe your company might have another platform. And then I would see kind of like who are people I'm interested in their team, interested in their job, interested in them. Sometimes there's just really interesting people you meet or you see in like a meeting or a presentation. And then I'd reach out to them on Slack and be like, hey, I'd love to grab like a virtual coffee with you, and really just ask them about their journey, how they moved into that role, and try to learn a little bit more about like what they do and how they got there. So that, like Larissa said, like people do generally love to talk about themselves. And I think you can also operate from this foundational idea that most people will want to help you, especially if it's easy and clear. So those were some of the ways that I kind of like built my networks internally, and really made friendships internally, but then in turn, when roles opened up that I was interested in, and definitely keep an eye on those internal job boards, y'all. It is so much easier sometimes to move internally than externally. But if you want a big salary bump, go elsewhere. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on those internal boards, keep an eye externally as well. But those connections will really be so helpful to have someone who can vouch for you, put in a good word for you, or be the first one to give you a heads up when a role on their team opens up.
That is so true. And you touched on something there, which is it's easy to, not easy, but it's easier to facilitate conversations internally, because you're already there, you know the organization, so you can introduce yourself to other people. But one thing that I think we often struggle with is negotiating that next step in our career. So whether it's a salary increase, a promotion, or job responsibilities, what advice do you have for us in that realm?
I love the time of year that we're talking about this, because autumn, I feel, is really like the season to get these intentions out there. I worked in talent management for a few years and managed performance and promotion programs at multiple tech companies. And what I can say is that, that raise that you want in March, like in Q1, the work of putting that out there starts now, even earlier if you could. But now, like I would say within 2 weeks, like make it a mission for yourself to do like early October, really have like a discussion with your manager if you're targeting a promotion, especially, or if you're targeting a raise. Either one of these conversations. Before you do so, first of all, do your research. So take a look if you have access to any of your pay information. Take a look at your position in range. So usually there's like a salary range, like a band for your level. And then you can see kind of like, are you at 50%? Are you at 20%? Are you at 60%? And use that as a basis for your conversation. So for example, if you're in like early, like the 20% of the range, but you've been doing this role for like 3+ years, then maybe there's some conversation around like a raise that puts you at a better position in your band that translates to the work that you've been doing, the tenure that you have. Like those are just some phrases to help you with this conversation. I would also look at industry averages. If you have any recruiter friends, hit them up. They have this information. And look at ranges for similar jobs, especially in your geographical area, because one of the limitations can be your geographical location. So if you're based in the Bay Area, if you're based in New York, chances are you're going to make more than someone who's based in Toronto, and that's just based on cost of labor and cost of living. But looking locally will help you build like a very realistic case, and then also be able to bring that. So yeah, start early, loop in your manager, like really make your manager your champion and your bestie for this process, because ultimately when it comes down to it, they're probably going to be the person who's representing you, whether to leadership or to a group of people who will make this decision. But remember that your manager is usually just one person in the room when it comes to these decisions. It can be 20 people, it can be 50 people, it could be your entire department, all the leaders in the department, depending on how those calibrations work. So it's also important at this time of the year to start thinking of like sharing your wins beyond just your manager. So maybe sharing any kind of like wins that you've had this year in a team channel, doing a presentation to your team for a project that you went above and beyond, or something that was a little extracurricular, like if you're an ERG leader and you just pulled off an amazing Latina Heritage Month and really showcase those like leadership skills and project management skills and show that off to your whole team. And don't feel shy about it. Like we said, like, you know, these are your accomplishments. This is fact. And this is going to help you with that next step, whether it's a promotion or whether it's a raise. So I feel like I just talked a lot. Those are my tips.
No, this is all good. Larissa, did you want to add to it?
Yeah, I was just in my position right now, I get to like be lucky enough to promote some people and to help them get promoted. And something that I would say is like, do not be ashamed of like setting your own goal as well and share with people. Like I have some people in my team who say like, hey, in 6 months, I want to get promoted. What should I do about it? What are my gaps? How can I get there? And it makes it easier for everyone for me to be transparent and say like, hey, you have those gaps. Let's work on your development plan. Or okay, like for me, you're in a good path, but let's build your networking. So sometimes, at least for me, like in the beginning of my career, I used to have a mindset of like, if I work really hard and do my best, people will see and they will recognize me. But actually, I realized that I have to be the owner. I have to say like, this is my goal. I know I'm not ready. Can you like company, manager, people, networking, mentor, help me understand what are my gaps to be there and what are the steps that I can make that are under my control for me to get there. And then like you're not kind of giving your career to other people, to the company, to the positions that are open or not, like you take control of your own career.
I love that. You are the CEO of your life. And
Yeah.
so, how do you want to manage your life, right? So, having a clear goal around where you want to go and what are the steps. It also means to what you were saying earlier, being vulnerable, realizing that sometimes there's some areas that we need to work on. So, speak honestly with your managers and asking them, you know, what can I work on? How can I improve? Because if you speak about your goals, then one, that shows your manager that you're ambitious, that you want to move up. And, you know, I also realize as Latinas, sometimes we'll shy away, we won't say something. But if you think about the other side of the table, that can be misinterpreted as, oh, there's a lack of ambition or a lack of initiative, when it could be completely far from the truth, right? So being able to express that also signals your manager that you're ready to take that next step. And so they will be more intentional with the projects that they assign to you. There's this question. Oh, there, yes, go ahead.
I would also just love to respond to a comment in the chat. So Laura mentioned it's oftentimes difficult to make the ask of promotion or raises if we're unaware of headcount or budget for raises in Q1 or Q2. It can make those conversations contentious. And that is part of why I would recommend like even like September, if you can't go back in time now, but October, ideally for these kind of conversations, because that's usually when businesses are finalizing their budgets for next year. So you want to give your manager that kind of like heads up that you want this to be considered in budget planning for next year. and potentially like headcount for next year. So yeah.
Yeah, no, great question. There's also another question here that I think is relevant to our conversation. Milena asked, have you ever had managers who tried to block your career, and how did you deal with it? Does anybody have some stories they would like to share in that area? Go for it.
I was like, I hope I'm the only one. I've had this experience before and it's really challenging. I think one of the main strategies that really worked for me was to remember that my manager is just one person in this decision-making process. So to try and create a relationship with my skip level manager and with like broader leaders on my team. I work in HR, so there's a bunch of different sub teams. And so being able to like work with them or like broadcast my work to the team became more important than ever. Ultimately, I did choose to leave that team. But it was a good reminder to really kind of like broadcast my work more broadly, and that like your manager is one tough part of the equation, but they're not the whole thing. So if there's other people who can speak up on your behalf, you might even have someone with more power, more influence than your manager who could be a champion for you.
I so agree. I had a similar experience a few years ago where my manager actually would stifle my growth. I would share that I was interested in moving and taking on more responsibilities, but for whatever reason, that just wasn't happening. And so for me at that time, the team was small. There wasn't much other places that I could go to have the conversation. And so at that point, what I decided to do was think about, is this still the right place for me? Right? Because sometimes you can outgrow an organization. And so it's in those moments where if you don't see any more growth opportunity for you, maybe it's time to move, look for another organization, and look for a company where you will have supportive managers. And it could also then be questions that you can have for your next interview around how do you, like how do you manage the growth within your team? What are the opportunities for advancement? Again, it starts to signal people that you are someone that is always investing in your own personal growth. And so if one organization doesn't value, another one will. And so know that there's always other opportunities out there for you. I think one question that we can all relate to also came from an anonymous person. Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome, and how have you dealt with it? Who wants to go first?
I can do that one. When I saw that, it's like, I can talk about this a lot. I can write a book about this. Yeah, I'm a person that struggles with anxiety. Imposter syndrome is something that is all the time in my life. Even like in this job that I'm doing, I'm a senior mobile developer and I'm afraid to do my job correctly in this new position. Um, have experience, yes, from the beginning, day one, especially as a person who pivot from another craft, is you are like, I'm not supposed to be here. I don't have the degree. I am not like the other people. I should be. How I deal with this. One of the things that it really helps me is something that I discovered a few years ago, which is what now I call, because I saw an article, is the brag document. Every time that I do something that I is good, or that my coworkers are praising for me, praising it for that, I just write it down in this document, like, I did this today, and um, this was impacting this amount of users, and now I solved this issue that was so prevalent in our code. So when the day is bad and I cannot think that I'm good enough, I'm like, I go to these documents like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I just did this. How I can think that? So it really helps me to switch that mindset, to realize the things that I'm doing are good. And another thing that I usually do is like, sometimes I find something interesting or do something great, and I'm thinking like maybe everyone knows about this and it's not worth to even mention it. Every time that you have an idea like that, again, write it in another document and then share it. Share it, don't think, just write it in, copy, paste, share it, close that part of the Slack or what you ever are showing, and you're going to see how many people is like, I would like to know about this. Can you teach me about this? There is these things that, but the first thing is, the most difficult thing is to convince yourself. Write it down really helps you to, by repetition, convince yourself that you are not good enough, but even better than you think.
I love that. And it's so true. I think, going back to, it's not bragging, it's fact. You have achieved success. Remind yourself of that. Sometimes imposter syndrome is just a projection of the other person's insecurity. It's not about you. And so always go back to and remind yourself you've done great achievements. Remind yourself of what those are. Remind yourself of your why as well. Why are you here? Why are you making an impact? And then, like Karen said, share it. Share the world. Find also your community of people that will provide you that support, especially in those moments where you feel really self-conscious. Seek out your community, those people that can elevate you, because sometimes you just need that boost in oxytocin to get you back on track. So that also is helpful. Larissa, did you want to add?
No, I will share something similar, but Karen, thank you for the tips, because it's definitely something that I would try. I do struggle a lot with that as well. And for me, like something that helped me is to look back of my own story, because sometimes when I have imposter syndrome is because I'm trying to compare myself with other people, and everyone comes from completely different scenario. And it's something that helps me at least calm down in the moment. It's just like, look, okay, where I was from, like what did I achieve? How long it took me for me to be here? It's not a competition. It's just like about my own journey. And this is something that really helps me understand, like in the future, this is going to be a greater story, because sometimes it takes you time to realize what you've done. At least for me, like when I look at like something that I did 3 years ago and like, oh my God, at that time I did not realize, but this was big. Like I have a delay in my own like recognition of myself. So sometimes when I get to this moment, I just breathe and think, okay, what would Larissa 10 years ago would say if she saw me here in this job title doing this work? And then it's like, okay, I own for the Larissa for the future, so let's keep doing. And it's a way for motivate myself.
That is so true. Look back and realize how far you've come, because
Yeah.
every challenge that you've gone through is the reason why you're here today, and you've been able to achieve what you've been able to achieve based on where you are. That's incredible. I can't believe time is flying by, and there's still so many questions that we'd love to answer, but there's so many great insights already. And I just want to make sure before we wrap up, what final advice do you have for our wonderful attendees? Larissa, do you want to start?
What final advice? I think I would go back to that, own your career, own your own development, and focus on what you can control. I think there's a lot of uncertainty all the time, and sometimes we limit ourselves thinking, oh, maybe there's not an open headcount, or maybe there's this and that. Just let it go. Like think about what you can control, your own, where you put your energy, and then things are gonna open up for you. Like something that I heard once is that we tend to talk about like lucky people. And I heard, I don't remember where, that lucky is actually when opportunity meets readiness. So focus on being ready. And then if the opportunity is there, just go for it and, like be bold, and the doors are going to open for you.
I love that. Karen?
The advice that I can give is to do this, to have grit, to do this deliberate practice that you are, when you want to pivot. That is the part that I think sometimes it's disregard, but the practice at the end gets this, you understand things better, and you can do this pivot in an easier way, I think. And also, like, I am sharing this on the chat. Usually I have a package of hours that I give free for mentorship. So if you want to sign up, it's there. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Make sure you book some time with Karen. That would be amazing. Peglis.
Oh my gosh, how to summarize? I feel well, one thing I want to add is like if you are feeling your inner ruts and you have been trying all of the strategies we've been saying and not getting that unlock, definitely consider coaching if it's something that your organization offers or something that you have available to you. And two great coaches within our community that I've worked with before, I'll put them in the chat. Ruby Garcia is an amazing negotiation coach, and she helped me negotiate my salary for my current job. And Sammy Ramirez is a wonderful career coach. She's based in Montreal, but she works with people internationally as well. And she helps people specifically with career pivots if you don't have a clear idea of what you want on the other side. So she's someone who can help you really identify your values, your interests, and what you want to do next. But finally, I just want to say, remember that you are the secret sauce. So even if there's lots of competition and you're feeling like it's tough out there, because it is, remember, no one can do it like you. And eventually you're going to find the place that appreciates it for the way that you do it. So don't forget that.
I love that. That was also going to be my final thought. I think out of all of this, one thing that I would recommend is build your story. We are Latinas, we are resilient, and we are fierce. And never forget that our roots and the women behind us have shaped who we are. So build your story, create your narrative, and share it. You know, find a mentor, practice with them, because it helps. The more that you share your story, the more you refine how you deliver it, the easier it'll get. And, you know, as they say, fake it until you make it. So continue to tell that story to yourself. Your brain will remember it, will believe it, and you will be able to manifest it. So, yeah, it's been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much, ladies. So much knowledge. We'll make sure to drop the LinkedIn with everyone here. Otherwise, go to the Latinas in Tech LinkedIn page. We're all tagged there, so make sure you connect with us. We want to hear from you as well. So if you ever have more questions, feel free to connect. It's been incredible. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's so much knowledge, so much power here. I love it. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.